Krishna's describing a traditional yoga practice. And he's really giving us a working definition of yoga. And perhaps the most complete one in the Gita. We don't maybe notice this when we read the Gita, but words are defined. And so when a new word is introduced, Krishna will give you a definition. He'll say, this word means this. And so usually call it yoga uchite, yoga sangyatam. And so this word, yoga, means this. This is called yoga. This is known as yoga. And so what's happening is Krishna is literally giving you a definition of the key terms that he's introducing so that you'll understand what Krishna means when he uses that term. This is done by philosophers or systematic thinkers, academics, people who are teaching something at a high level. They will define their terms. Socrates said that, first define your terms. And so if I'm using a word like identity politics, what is identity politics? You know what the word identity means, right? Concept of self, or right? Okay. And we know what the word politics means, right? So what does identity politics mean? Well, it means a politics which is based around race or color or some identity you have, and then your politics is based on that thing that you identify yourself as. You follow? Let's check my definition. Identity politics. Identity politics is politics based on a particular identity, such as race, nationality, religion, gender, sexual orientation, social background, social class, etc. So there you go. I was right. Okay. But you know the word identity. You know the word politics. But you didn't know the compound term identity politics. You follow? But that, the term is it's in usage. But if I use that term with you, none of whom know what the term means, and I don't take the time to define it, you're at a disadvantage to really understanding what I'm talking about. You may be able to glean what I'm intending by context, but if the term is sophisticated enough and has enough depth to it, and I don't take the time to define it, and you don't know it, you have a problem. This happens. You're reading something, you don't know what a word means, and you have to look it up, right? So, in a serious text, you'll find definitions are given at the outset of key terms. You'll often find at the end of a book a glossary where, key terms are defined, but it's a little different because the glossary is usually added by editors during an editorial process to complete a book. They might add an index, they might add a glossary. But that's different than when you have a book that's written by a philosopher and he introduces terms and uses them in a very specific way and then takes the trouble to tell you what they mean. So Krishna defines yoga 3 times. He says, Samatvam yoga uchyate. Equanimity. Samatva. Sama. What does sama sound like? Same. Samatva. Tva means ness. Sameness. Equanimity. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Equanimity is called yoga. Krishna says, yoga sta kuru karmani. Do your work situated in yoga. Asiddhi siddhyo samobhutva. Siddhi asiddhyo samobhutva. Be the same in success or failure. Samatvam yoga uchyate. That equanimity is yoga. So it's not just equanimity. It's equanimity while failure, succeeding, and doing your... You missed that. It's more important than the failure or success. Because being the same in failure or success is literally the same as what? Equanimity. So I already said equanimity, as did Krishna. Therefore, saying equanimity again doesn't add as much to the conversation as the idea of yoga sta kuru karmani. Kuru means do. Do your duty. Do your karma. Situated in yoga. What does that mean? Siddhya siddhyo samobhutva. Be the same in success or failure. Samatva. That equanimity is called yoga. Say you weren't following? You got to sharpen your mind. You got to learn to pick up the flow of the text. You follow? The key elements. You would have missed that, right? It's not wrong to say in success or failure, but that's an elaboration on equanimity. But the key element I added, or Krishna added rather, was that you're doing your duty. Remember how we say yoga is when you do your duty but you aren't attached to the results? Krishna literally says that. He says this is yoga. And then Krishna, a couple verses later, says, yoga karmasu koshalam. Yoga is koshala, is skill. Karmasu, in your work. What's the skill Krishna's referring to, Jordan? You got to focus. What's the skill Krishna's referring to, Dalen? Yoga is skill in doing your work. What's the skill? Yeah? Being equipoised, equanimous, the same, whether you succeed or fail. We just established that. Yoga is that skill, that art within your working. Did you follow it that time? You see? You see how you missed it? Did you say you missed it? The answer was right there for you, wasn't it? I already gave you the answer of what the skill was, right? You gotta activate that mind so you can follow. Those are two definitions of yoga given early on in the text by Krishna. Here's the third one. It's text 20 through 23. Let's read it quickly. Yatra, where uparamate chittam, where the mind has come to rest. Nirudham yoga sevaya, and the mind is restrained. It's restrained by the practice of yoga. Sevaya means practice. By the practice of yoga. Where the consciousness come to rest and is restrained by the practice of yoga. Yoga's chitta vritti nirodha is almost the same here. Chitta nirudham yoga. Almost the same. And this book is earlier than the Yoga Sutras. Yatra, where Shaivatmanatmanam Pashyam Atmani Tushati, where you see the self by the self and find satisfaction in the self. Sukham Atyantikam Yattat. And there is unlimited happiness. Anta means end, like Vedanta, the end of the Vedas, the end of knowledge. It's called Vedanta, Bhakti Vedanta. This is Atyanta, Atyantikam, beyond end. Ati means too much, beyond the end. In this sense, it means beyond. Sukham Atyantikam Yattat Buddhi Grahyam Ati Indriyam, the same Ati Indriyam. You grasp unlimited happiness by your intellect beyond the senses. There's a transcendental experience. Buddhi here means an intellect, but it really means spiritual. Because it says it's Ati Indriya. It's beyond the senses. Therefore, Buddhi Grahyam means it's beyond also the mind, and it's now getting into the soul. That's why it's Atyantika Buddhi. Adyantika Sukham, unlimited happiness. Yam ladva chaparam labham manyate nadikam tata. And you think upon achieving this that there is nothing greater to be achieved. Yasmin sthita nadukena gurunapi vichalyate. And in that state, even in the greatest suffering, you don't move. Veti yacha nachayvayam stitas chalatita pata. And you never depart from the truth, knowing this. Tam vidyad. Know that. Dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga sanghitam. Know that it is known as yoga when you un-yoga yourself to your yoga to suffering. Your yoga to suffering is your attachment to this body, to the senses, to sensual delights, to sensual pleasures. Your unyoking of yourself to the body and the senses is the achievement of a higher union with the self, with God, with unlimited happiness, with transcendence. This is a definition of yoga. It's elaborate, much more detailed, much more full than the previous two definitions of yoga, which are given in the Gita. This is an extensive definition. It spans 3 verses. 3.5 verses. It's an extensive definition. Prabhupada breaks it here. There's another line. Prabhupada breaks it because this last line here, this is called yoga. Really, you want to put that together because it becomes a complete definition. Even though he had to break from the verse structure, he put this half of this verse with these verses because it really gives you a full definition of yoga. This is like, I don't know how to stress this even anymore, but it's a big deal when you have an author thousands of years ago who systematically defined his terminology so that all readers would understand exactly what he meant when he used a word. It's like high level scholarship. It's like high level. It's a really serious text. When do you see a systematic definition given of a term by the author of the book? When do you see it? When in your reading do you encounter such things?
When it's first introduced?
Yeah, that's fine. That's true. When a term is first introduced. That's not my question. My question is, I doubt you've ever read a book in your entire life where the author introduced terms and then defined them. That's my point. When do you ever find a book where the author introduces terms and then defines them rigorously for you? When do you find it? What kinds of books do that?
Really rigorous philosophy.
Rigorous philosophical treatises, right? Like really serious philosophy, not philosophy for lay people, not novel type philosophy or musings or something like that, philosophical musings, not like that. A rigorous philosophical treatise, right? When else would you find it? You can answer this question. When else would you find it?
I think you can find it in textbooks.
In textbooks, like what kind of textbooks?
For instance, in my biology textbook.
In a science book. You won't find this in a history book. You may sometimes, but not generally not. You'll find this in hard science. Maybe even some stuff in a psychology book, in a psychology textbook, in a sociology textbook. You find this type of writing like in extremely scholastic circles, where you have professors and their job is to educate you and impregnate you with a certain body of knowledge, and they have taken years and decades to put together information in a way which is meant to indoctrinate you and teach you a lexicon and teach you a way of thinking and educate you systematically. That's where you find this kind of stuff. We should notice when this stuff happens in the Gita. It really shows that we're dealing with a deeply philosophical text. And now we move on to today's discussion. Sanischayena yoktavyo yoga anirvinna cetasa. With certitude, with determination, you must practice yoga. You must yoke yourself to yoga. You must yoke yourself to yoga. It's the operative. You must do this. You should do this. Anirvina cetasa. This is interesting. With an undistracted mind. Nirvina means like a dismayed mind or a distracted mind. Anirvinna means without a distracted mind. It's a double negative. Near is a negative, near is like irregardless, means with regard. So this is with an undistracted mind. Distracted, undistracted, you get it? Attract, distract, undistracted. It's a double negative. Sankalpa prabhavan kamams tyaktva sarvan asheshata. Rejecting all desires completely that are sankalpa prabhavan, that are created by sankalpa, by likes and dislikes. Rejecting all the desires which are created by your natural tendency to like and dislike things. You follow? Some things you're attracted to, some things you're distracted to. It's very almost automatic. Oftentimes, our likes and dislikes and such, it's kind of very visceral. Very sensual. Not sensual in the sense of sexual, but sensual in the sense of it's a sense thing. It's a visceral thing. It's not really well thought out. And so the desires which are born of your likes and dislikes, your sankalpa, vikalpa, those have to be rejected completely. Manasa Manasaivendriya gramam viyamya samantata. And you need to from all sides, you need to control your mind and all your senses. Collectively, they need to be completely restrained in every way. With great determination, you should perform this yoga with an undistracted mind that's completely kicked out all desires which are born of just your natural visceral reaction to this world. And you should completely control from all sides your minds and senses. One should engage himself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born from mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Manasa, sorry, I missed this. Manasa, by the mind, all the senses. Indriya gramam niyamya manasa. By the mind, you need to control all your senses. Not you need to control your senses in your mind, you need to control your senses by your mind. Now, what relevance does this have to us? This last verse I just read. What relevance does this have to us? With a theological twist and with a theistic twist, because we're focusing on God. But it's the same basic practice of yoga, of controlling your mind from all sides, of not deviating your mind, of focusing your mind, of restraining your senses. Excellent. What relevance does this have to us? What do we do with this? It's like a sage-like practice. It sounds really cool, but what are you going to do with this? You're going to use chant japa. What else are you going to do? Yeah?
I think just in everyday life, it's valuable to not be so focused on sensual desires and to focus your mind more on...
In your everyday life, do you get into trouble because you have visceral likes and dislikes and you just go with it? Does that create problems for you? Do your visceral, sensual likes and dislikes, precognitive, not thought out, just I like this, very almost animalistic, you could say, very primitive, your likes and dislikes, do those get you into trouble? Think about it. It might not have to be that you find some sexy person and run off or something like that. It might not have to be that. But do you have visceral inclinations that mess up your day-to-day life? Like what?
Sexual urges.
Okay, I don't think they mess up your day-to-day life. They might be semi-agitating, but I think you're doing good in terms of your self-control. So I didn't want to go. I said don't think about running off with somebody. I was kind of the whole gamut of sexuality. I was putting on hold for a second. Do your likes and dislikes create problems for you on a daily basis? Yes, they do. Like what? Like you like to eat sweets, although you have diabetes, and you regularly eat sweets more than you should. Why? Because you like them. Because you want that dopamine hit. You want that little reward center hit that you get. You get a dopamine hit from eating sugar. You want that hit, right? That's why you can make room for dessert. That's why there's always room for dessert. Because it doesn't have anything to do with hunger. It has to do with getting that dopamine hit, that insulin release. And in fact, you don't get it like from monk fruit or something like that. You have to get the sugar hit, and there has to be calories attached to it. That's what gives you the dopamine hit. You don't get the same hit from eating something with no calories. You ever notice that? When you eat a sweet with no calories, you notice how it's never satisfying? That's because your brain is designed to only give you that dopamine reward if there's calories attached. You get in trouble with that? How often? Right? How about you?
Disliking exercise.
Yeah, sure. You don't like exercise is hard, so you don't like it, so you don't do it. Okay, good. There's more. Come on, there's a big one. It's like obvious. As big as his. You're manic. You get all spastic. You hate things. You love things. You run around like a chicken with its head cut off in this direction and that direction. Do you do that daily?
Yeah, my life is just like switch off.
That's what I just said. Do you do that daily? Just a simple yes. I said it better than you did. Yes or no? Okay. Does that get you in trouble?
Yes.
There you go. See how easy this is? I don't know why I have to psychoanalyze you guys in semi-public to get you to trigger. You follow this? How about you?
100%.
What?
Food or like even like defending myself incessantly.
Yeah, your need for validation, your need to be right? These things get you in trouble. And it's not even cognitive. It's precognitive. You just, it's almost like childlike. You have a sophisticated mind that you use to defend what's really a precognitive, childlike need for constant validation and inability to take constructive criticism. Right? I think that we can broaden this verse to include a Zen-like attitude towards most of the stuff in your life that you do on a daily basis that's mildly, we're devotees, so most of the really bad stuff we worked on. The really gross stuff, the four regular principles are a great list of gross things that need to be dealt with. If you follow the four regular principles, you're a law-abiding citizen. Clear thinking. Not just running on your sensual appetites. Regulated. So for devotees, the grossest manifestations, if you're following properly, the grossest manifestations of this stuff aren't an issue. So then you got to look a little bit less gross, a little bit more subtle. And you'll find there's a whole smorgasbord of stuff that you're doing wrong that this verse directly speaks to. And just like it doesn't say get rid of all desires. I mean, I guess you can say all desires are born from the mind. You also say get rid of all desires which are born, those desires that are born from the mind. But those desires that are connected to God or this or that, those could actually be a positive thing. You can interpret the verse like that. It's condemning those visceral likes and dislikes, but not dispassionate, thoughtful, determination about what should be focused on. Those things don't have to be rejected. It's just this visceral, reactive engagement with the world that has to be dealt with. You following this? And this supports this. Shanai, Shanai, Uparamit. Step by step, gradually, you should come to rest. Buddhya, Driti, Grihitaya. And you should have conviction. You should be convicted. You should have conviction. And by your intelligence, you should gradually bring your mind to rest. Bring yourself to rest. See that Shanai, Shanai? Gradually. And that indicates that this isn't just a one-time thing. This isn't just it's a lifestyle. It's a long-term endeavor. And you win it by a game of inches. You win it by a game of inches. By being a little less sensual and a little more thoughtful and a little more cognitive and a little less untethered, unyoked every day. Japa is this, amazing exercise in meditation, and accompanied by a lifestyle where you are restraining yourself, restraining your mind, restraining your desires, focusing them, desiring the right things, watching your desires, not letting them own you. That's a powerful prescription for progress. Atma samstam mana kritva. Having made the mind stand in the self. How do you stand in the self? You really start to think like our tradition teaches. You learn about the nature of the self. It's eternal, beyond birth and death. And to stand in the nature of self is to have this conception of self, this identity. Now your identity politics, how you conceive of yourself in relation to the world, is I'm a soul. This material world is not my home. Sensual delights are not the most important thing. I'm convicted, and I'm going to stand in the self. Let that be what motivates my actions, the platform from which I act in this world. Na kinchit api chintayet. And you shouldn't think of anything. Don't think of anything. Obviously, it means don't think of anything else than, spirit and the self and these teachings. And hyperbolically stated, don't think of anything. Let's read the translation. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. Instead of thinking of this as like some sage-like practice that was done by yogis in the days of old, this is what we need to start to do in our life. Gradually, over the course of years. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. So this also indicates, what does this indicate? What's this verse indicate? What's the first thing this verse indicates?
The mind's unsteady.
The mind will wander. From wherever the mind wanders. What does that mean? That means the mind will wander. You get it? I want you guys to think like this. You basically said it. I'm just saying it more literally from the verse. But you said it. What does this mean? It means the nature of the mind is to be unsteady? Sure. But even more explicit, it means your mind will wander. Where is it going to wander?
Everywhere.
Yeah, lots of places. And when it wanders lots of places, what do you need to do? You need to bring it back. Can you bring your mind back?
Yes.
You can. You have that power. So when your mind wanders, you need to bring it back. Can you bring your mind back? You can. Somebody else can bring your mind back for you? They're not. Sometimes we talk about Krishna being the all-attractive one, that he naturally attracts your mind. That he naturally pulls your mind towards him. It's a beautiful meditation on the all-attractive Supreme. We also need to do our part. Krishna is very abstract. Maya is very real. What do I mean when I say that?
It's more present in our everyday life, or we can see it and experience it more easily than we can Krishna.
You can see it and experience it more easily than Krishna. I think that's true, but I don't think that really communicates what I'm trying to say. Can you say it more bluntly?
Krishna, the definition of Krishna just doesn't fit into this tangible world.
Yeah, I mean, that's more abstract than what she said. Can you say it real plainly? What do I mean when I say Krishna's abstract and Maya is real. What do I mean?
We're just totally absorbed in this body and all of our thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, it's still too abstract. I mean that sense gratification, you can grab it and sink your teeth into it. Every single day, it's right in front of you. It's more real. Krishna is abstract. I mean, this isn't what our theology says. I'm taking a kind of a challenging stance. When I say Krishna is abstract, what do I mean? You should know what I mean because I just told you what the first half means. If you want to add the second half, yes.
You can't sink your teeth into Krishna.
Yeah, you can't really directly see Krishna. I don't know if you want to sink your teeth to Krishna. Sounds a little trippy, but you can't see Krishna the same way you can go see a movie. The same way you can go see a concert. You have to chant and understand that Krishna is his name, and get good association, and free yourself from the shackles of Maya, and then you can taste that happiness beyond the senses. But you have to curb your addiction to your senses and sense enjoyment. You have to curb that in order to free yourself up to see something higher. You follow this? So, if you have to curb, and what's the most obvious thing that you need to give up and curb? What's the big one that kills everybody? Come on, guys. Stop pretending you don't know. What's the big one? Lust. Sex desire. That's the big one. How do we regulate sex desire? Just don't do it. Don't engage. How else do we regulate sex desire? Marriage. Marriage becomes a kind of license for sex. Is that going to get you in trouble? Yes, it does. Sex in marriage gets you in trouble. Orgasms in marriage feel just like orgasms outside of marriage. Attaches you to your body. You start to enjoy that oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin modulating, prolactin hit. Why is marriage considered to be appropriate?
Because you're limiting it.
Yeah, you're limiting it. Sure. Does that mean it's not going to get you in trouble? Doesn't mean it's not going to get you in trouble. It's not going to get you in as much trouble. There's a big responsibility. What goes along with, you have kids. That's like a big price to pay. Like a large price. Like you go to the store, it's like, you buy this couch. How much is that couch? Like $87,000. You're like, whoa, for a couch? Really? Right? But it's a super comfy couch. But you don't get to sit on it for like 2 minutes. The dopamine hit from sex lasts a matter of minutes. The dopamine hit from cold showers, for example, lasts much, much longer. It's less intense, but has a longer, much longer effect. Having children, committing to one person, and then even within that relationship, minimizing. Shanai, gradually. You still ultimately, like if you met like a 90-year-old guy and he was still having sex, what would you think? What would people think out there? What would be like, huh? Right? You think, wow, what a baller, right? What a gangster, right? That's what you think, right? What would we think? Huh? Yeah, like really? Like that's more like you didn't evolve beyond that ever? You didn't find anything above that your whole life? Just gonna squeeze that last little bit of juice out of your body before you croak. That's it. That's all you got. You can figure out any technology, any higher thing. You follow? So, whether or not you're a Hare Krishna, and whether or not you're a yogi, and whether or not you have our value system, the reality is you're going to die. Your body is going to disintegrate on you, literally, while you occupy it. You're going to become completely incapable of enjoying the material world. Your muscles are going to disintegrate. Your body is going to, it's just going to decline severely. Your ability to enjoy like you could in your youth is just going to become incredibly dilapidated. A fraction. They always say, youth is wasted on the young. Because like old people, they'd really love it if they could be young again. They got all this like wisdom and they could really figure out how to enjoy the world, but they can't anymore. You follow? And so irrespective of whether or not you're part of our tribe, you are going to get old and you're going to need to figure out some other stuff to do. There's limits. There's limits. Like you see an old lady and she's all like dressed up with like caked on makeup, like crazy. She looks like a drag queen, like super old. What do you think? It's like, really? Like that's what you're doing? That's you understand? There's no grace in it. You're just trying to act like you're a teenager. You go to Forever 21 and you see like somebody's like 80 or 90, you'd be bummed. It's like, really? Come on. You get it? Everybody needs to learn how to control their mind. Everybody needs to learn how to control their senses. It is the task of every human being because your ability to enjoy your senses is going to wane. And even when you're young, what happens when your senses are unrestrained and you're just running everywhere trying to do whatever your senses want? It's just a complete disaster. It's a waste of your youth. So this program is good for you when you're young. It's good for you when you're old. It is what every human being is going to have to do anyway, just by the natural progression of life. And it's going to make you a heck of a lot happier. You make way better decisions. You'll be way more trustworthy. People who are too sensual, people who are too codependent, people who are too addicted to stuff, love addicts, sex addicts, drug addicts, you can't trust them. You can't trust them. Just their responsibility just fly out the window. Their integrity flies out the window. Puna mushiko bhava. They again become a mouse. They kind of rise up. You know the story? Again become a mouse? There was a mouse being chased by a cat. He went to a sage and he squeaked to the sage. I'm not going to try to do voices. But he squeaked. I thought about it, but I'm over it. He said to the sage, help me. The sage said, what do you want? He goes, make me into a cat. So then The mouse was made into a cat, and the cat didn't chase the mouse anymore, and the mouse ran away as a cat. Then the cat came back. He said, help me. He said, what do you want now? He said, I'm being chased by a dog. He said, what do you want me to do? He goes, I want you to make me a dog. He said, okay, become a dog. And the dog was running around. The dog came back. And the dog said, help me. And the sage said, what do you want now? He said, I'm being chased by a tiger. So the sage said, okay, become a tiger. Then the tiger started looking at the sage like that sage would be a tasty snack. He started salivating and moving toward the sage. And the sage said, hey, again become a mouse. And then it became a mouse again and ran on. You get it? We want to rise up, right? But you see people who are too addicted. They just can't be trusted. In due course of time, they just, they have a lack of integrity. Commitment means you do it when you don't want it. Otherwise, you might as well say, you might as well call it whimsy. If you're going to promise somebody you're going to do something, you're like, I promise you I'm going to do this as long as I want to. Well, yeah, but you're anyway going to do it as long as you want to, so we need to have a conversation about that, because you're anyway going to do it as long as you want to. When you make a promise, when you sign a promissory note, when you make a commitment, when you sign a contract, it means I'm going to do it even when I don't want it. Even when it's tough. You follow? You get it? We all need to learn this stuff. We all need to work on this stuff. This is on everybody's plate. Everybody needs to be working on this. Every human being will eventually, by the force of time, need to start to address these points. And any halfway intelligent person will start to address this stuff. I mean, really, the line of demarcation between a toddler and a child is some sense control. Toddlers just, they eat dirt and they just do whatever. Children can sit down and do some homework. They can control their mind and senses. In many ways, the path to becoming a human being, what makes us different than an animal, because children and animals have equal intelligence at a certain point. So what makes a human, and what differentiates from animals is this ability to exercise self-restraint, have executive function, think about things, curb our passions, make good decisions, have integrity. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me barely attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He's beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity was supreme, and that he's free from all reactions to past deeds. I mean, that sounds great, doesn't it? To attain the highest happiness. Sukham uttamam, the highest happiness. That sounds great. But you got to put work in. Thus, the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfection, perfect happiness, in transcendental loving service to the Lord. What it literally says is, yunjam, yoking, evam sadatmanam, yoking oneself always, yogi vigata kalmasa, the yogi free from all evil or all wrongs. Kalmasa means wrong. Sukhena Brahma Sangsparsham. With happiness, he touches Brahman. Touching Brahman. He touches God. He touches spirit. Remember when I said Krishna's abstract? But the language used here to describe the state of perfection is that you touch divinity. Atyantam sukham ashnute. And he achieves limitless happiness. Happiness without end. Touching the Supreme. Why do people buy lottery tickets? Because they want $100 million and it only costs them $5. The cost of buying the ticket is relatively low and the potential reward is extremely high. It's just an amazing return on your investment. That's the seductive appeal of a lottery. You have to balance out, what's my return on my investment? What do I need to put in? What do I get out of it? I think it's worth meditating on this idea that if I believe in God, which is a separate conversation, but if I find good evidence to believe in God, what to speak of if I have some experience with divinity. If I believe in God, what else should I be doing with my life than trying to touch God? Interestingly, if you believe in God, is God touchable? Could an all-powerful God make himself touchable? Yes. Wouldn't all good God want for you to be able to touch him? Yes. Therefore, an all-good and all-powerful God would make himself approachable and attainable. Which means that we would have the ability to attain God. We'd be divine-like enough. And we do see human beings are pretty special. Precisely in their ability to have executive function, which is essentially what yoga is. It's executive function in a very, very highly refined way. What is executive function? The ability to control your thoughts, to delay gratification, to think dispassionately, to reach determinations about what's best, to follow through. Is that a good definition? That's executive function. Yoga is really just a very, very, very refined and powerful level of executive function where you can literally think of one thing and shut everything else out and focus. You have that kind of laser sharp, incredible power of your mind. You have trained your mind. That is yoga. And then if there is an all-good, all-powerful God, he'd want to be approachable and he would be able to make himself approachable. Therefore, the idea that you could touch God would be true. It would be a possibility. Given that, what else is there to dedicate your life to? What's better? Becoming a lawyer, becoming a doctor, winning the Olympics, getting married, having children, getting rich, traveling the world, getting famous, getting strong, breaking records. Okay, just think for a moment how paltry and trivial those things are compared to the multiverse level perfection of touching divinity, of taking that most abstract thing and making it real, of freeing yourself enough from this world that you can reach out into transcendence and touch Brahman. These types of verses, for someone who's realized God exists, for someone who considers that God exists, for someone who thinks about that, thinks on that deep level, these types of verses are like, okay, I got to go for it. I got to try. This is me. This is my tribe. These are my people. This is what I'm built for. This is what I'm doing with my lifetime. These verses are encouraging. They're locked away in a different language. They speak of executive function. They speak of yoga. It sounds sage-like. It's easy just to gloss over them, but it's gradual. It's step by step. It's you. It's you today. It's what you got. It's governing your life. It's moving your life, orienting yourself towards divinity. You get it? And once you realize God exists, once that's your realization, once that's your value, once you've accepted that, what else is there? There is nothing else. This is it. Thank you. Thank you. Feedback, guys?